Welcome, everybody, back to Test, Fail, Learn, and Grow, the show where we're going to go behind the scenes of the highlight reels. We're going to get into the real moments that shape entrepreneurs because we know it's never a straight line to the path. We're going to, the creators, the builders, because we all know the truth. Growth does not happen when things go right. It happens when the plans fall apart, the pressure hits, and you've decided what kind of leader you really are. I'm Adam House, and today's episode is about a creative force who has lived that reality across film sets, production studios, and entrepreneurial trenches. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about some of the things I've been posting on LinkedIn. I always take on these different personalities, and right now it's the W2F guy, because I'm seeing all of this nonsense out there. Like, what are we really doing on LinkedIn? And I've talked about what we're doing here, and it's not really about scrolling and posting. I'm not talking about how your accolades are, your resume, or the grind, the goals that we show and we put up every day. The reality is we celebrate the wins like they define us, but no one's showing the nights where we wanted to quit. And I've had thousands of those, the meetings that bombed, the strategy that blew up, the real stuff, the bricks that actually are going to build your foundation. People think this platform is about going viral. It's not. It's about building a legacy, not a brand, not a persona, but something that lasts. And if you've been following me on LinkedIn, you've seen, I have 4 boys. I've always thought about legacy from a young age. And what I have found over the last 30 years, that my legacy, it's not money, it's not businesses, but it is my relationships, the people I have met. And LinkedIn is a perfect place to stay in touch with relationships from the past, relationships you currently have, and also to build future relationships in the right way. So I've been talking a lot about that on LinkedIn. That's my new persona, the WTF guy, because there's a lot of nonsense out there. So want to introduce our guest today, Justin, and he is an award-winning filmmaker, writer, producer, and his career has really taken him from the indie film scene in Austin to the studio world of Los Angeles, and now back to his roots in Indiana. Justin's worked on major productions, directed multiple feature films, and now he's producing 500, an epic production about the first Indianapolis 500 in partnership with legendary screenwriter Angelo Pizzo of Hoosiers, one of my favorite movies, and of course, Rudy. But what makes Justin unique, and a great guest for the show, it's not about his projects or his mindset, or it's about his mindset. So he's someone who's faced rejection, dealt with burnout, and rebuilt himself with more clarity, more humility, and a lot more fire. So Justin, welcome to Test, Fail, Learn, and Grow. Let's get after it.
Thanks, man. That was a great intro. I appreciate that. Hearing it like that, it's like, wow, okay, I'll take it. It makes it worthwhile. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, it's funny. I always don't want to be introduced when I'm a guest on someone else's show because it sounds so good, right? But we really have those moments in time of success, but 95% of the time we're getting our butts kicked. So I listened to my introduction. I'm like, dude, it certainly didn't feel like that when I was going through it. But I want to rewind with you to the moment, you went in for your first big budget film pitch. So you had a couple successful indie films under your belt, but then you had a passion, the script, the creative momentum. You were in LA and you were ready. Tell us about that moment.
Well, I guess it started for me when I was in undergraduate school. My path, I'm a drummer also in a band. So I thought I was going to be a musician. I went to college to study jazz and thought I was going to be a jazz musician. So I got a degree in audio engineering and took an internship in Austin, Texas, and I got kind of lucky where I ended up. There were some guys ahead of me in the program that went to this same studio, and it was run by a guy who was a pretty big wig in Texas. So, through my relationship with those guys, I was able to secure that internship, and through that process, I was always the kid that had a video camera in his hand and was always recording things. When I was in college, I was making music videos for my band and things like that. But I always thought I wanted to make records as a drummer. I just wanted to be an engineer in the studio. But as I started doing that, I realized that, you know, that really wasn't for me. But I kind of also had my foot in that door of being in the film world because of where my internship was. And so I got lucky and started working on films like Spy Kids and The Alamo. I was in Austin during that time when Rodriguez and Linklater were building their first studios, and they were really cutting edge in what they were doing. And as I started doing work for those guys, I realized, I can continue to work with them on their projects and help forward their careers, or I could really kind of take a step back, go get my graduate degree, and then come out and really kind of take what I learned from them and do my own thing.
Right.
So as I was getting my graduate degree, I was back in Indiana. So I made a couple independent films here. And, when you're in Los Angeles or someplace like Austin and you want to make a film, there is a film culture there. And so it's kind of hard to break into it. But in a city like Indianapolis, it's still, relatively new to that culture. The city was open arms with what we were trying to do. So it's like, oh, you're making a film here? How can we help? As opposed to, oh, in LA, if you're like, oh, we want to use your restaurant, they're like, what are you going to pay us? Like, what's our, what are we getting out of it? So I just kind of realized, okay, so I had some success with a couple indie films I did here in Indy, and then realized if I'm going to be here, I just started brainstorming like, what are the biggest stories that I could tell about Indiana? And I came up with a few ideas and realized that, Hoosiers was shot here, Rudy was shot here, and those are some of the most iconic sports films ever. And it just so happened, one of the three ideas I had was about the first Indy 500, and I was like, well, how come no one's ever made this movie before? So I kind of went around, I made a little business plan and was pitching it to some of the local business owners here, and was like, hey, if I was going to try to make this film, would you be interested? And they were like, well, if you could get Angelo Pizzo to write your script, I think you could really have something. So I literally, on a whim, just kind of cold called him and said, "Hey, man, is this be something you'd be interested in?" And luckily, he was like, "Man, I've always wanted to do that movie." So he's a great guy, and he agreed to do the script. And I started thinking, it's a no-brainer, right? Like you get someone with that iconic, you know, pedigree to write this script, it's going to be easy. I'm going to take it to Hollywood and I'm going to say, hey, I've got this famous guy that, you know, has this pedigree. Let's make this film. And I soon realized that that's just not how it goes all the time.
Well,
So
and it rarely goes like that. But we were talking about relationships earlier. I mean, that's the story of my life, kind of being in the right place at the right time and meeting the right person to make a significant impact. But like the difference between Indiana and LA, I mean, you're talking like YMCA baseball versus the major leagues. I have friends that were in the film industry, music industry, and when you get out there, like you said, I mean, it's historic. Film production obviously is been around there for a long time. It is a very tough place to crack into, no matter who you're working with. You could have the best script and the best actors, and it's still very difficult.
yeah, I mean, you really have to decide that this is something that you want to do, and you just have to figure out how to break doors down, kick them in, and just don't take no for an answer. I think that's really, if you're going to try and go after your dreams. I've been lucky enough in life that I've had a supportive family, and they when I told my parents I wanted to go study music, they were like, "Oh God, okay, fine. What are you going to do with that?" And I'm like, I'm going to be a rock star. Like that was, like, it's going to be that easy, right? And then I was transitioning into films, and like, "Oh no, what are you doing now?" But they were, very supportive, and so you just kind of have to surround yourself with people like that. And as you're going out and pitching and things like that, there's more frustrating days. I like a lot of the things that you said in your intro really resonated with me because I mean, it's just all about, taking your lumps, putting one foot in front of the other, and every day when you wake up, just make sure that the goals you have achieved, you try and achieve those. Realize you get one chance at life, and no matter what, just, make it the best one you can and go after those dreams.
Yeah, well, you're kind of new to our community, new to our show, new to our audience, but we talk about all the time building brick by brick. It was something that we came up with the House of Bricks a couple years ago, right? Life's experiences are like bricks. You can either carry them with you and they weigh you down, or you can lay them down and build a strong foundation, turn obstacles into stepping stones. So we actually got the trademark on that. I couldn't believe it. So my goal is to make that the next just do it, is living and building brick by brick.
Yeah.
Hey, it sounded like everything just went perfect, right? You had this idea, but that's the test part. Let's get into where those dreams actually met the wall of reality.
Well, we could sit here and it's like, it's funny because one day I'll be on a phone call and I'm like, I can't believe I'm talking to this person on the phone. And it's like, oh, I think, hey, your dreams are about to come true. And I've been in meetings with some of the most famous people in the world, and you think one day it's going to happen, and the next day, for some strange reason, it doesn't. And like you say, you could really let that weigh you down. But I think the key is to not let that weigh you down. And no matter what, don't take no for an answer. You know, don't let those bricks weigh you down. And like my shirt says, every day get shit done, right? I mean, I think we're very simpatico in those things, and that's why I was happy to be on your show because I did read your mantra on your site, and I'm really into that. So, if I can help inspire someone to just not give up, I'm still struggling just like everybody else. Life is a hustle, but it's about the hustle. So I've learned that I gave up a long time ago on the destination, right? To me, it's more about the journey. So I've surrounded myself with a lot of people that inspire me. I hope that I can inspire, and we just do creative things together. All of us try to have the most successful life that we can have, and those are the kind of communities I want to be involved with.
Well, we're in the process. I've been harassing my team for a couple months to put together the House of Bricks, brick by brick swag. I think Paul's about sick of hearing about it, but I'm going to send you a polo.
Yeah, great, man. We'll trade some swag for sure, man.
I'm in. I'm in. So let's talk about this, failing part though, right? Yes, you surround yourself with the right people. You got a great mindset, but I really want to dig into where this thing started to collapse.
Well, I mean, so this particular project about the 500 has been a passion project of mine for going on 15 years. So, I've done other things in the interim. I was in LA for a while. Now I'm back in Indiana, so I kind of picked it back up. But man, gosh, where would I even begin? Like I said, I've been in rooms with some very famous people. I'm not going to spit anybody's names out, and because there's no bad blood, but you just have to realize it's all business. And when you're pitching something like a gigantic film about like an IP like the Indianapolis 500, say you go to a Tom Cruise or a Brad Pitt or a Bradley Cooper, they've also got the projects that they're trying to do, and they're hustling just as much as you are. And so it's very awe-inspiring to be in rooms with guys like that and realize that they're having the same struggles that you are, even though you think they're so successful. But when we get out of the meeting and we're in the elevator, they're like, man, that went good or that went bad. And like, I was here last week and it was even worse than that one. And I'm just looking at these people going, wow, really? Like, you're having the struggles that I'm having. And like, you're like one of the most famous people I've ever seen. But once you realize that, everyone's in the same boat and it's all about a hustle, and it's the people that really understand not to let those bricks weigh you down. They're the ones that are succeeding, and everybody can do that. If everybody would just do that, everybody can find their way and find their chance and, have a great life trying to figure it out. So I think really once I realized I gave up on the destination and just figured out that I'm going to have as much fun as I can on the journey, make it the best journey possible, and help everyone else I can along the way. That invites people in your life to help you. So now we're on a good path. We've got a good team behind us, and we're finally to a point after all these years that we're going to make this thing happen. We're real close to making our official announcement, and it's just through that. It's through those days when you wake up and you're like, man, why am I still trying to do this? If Brad Pitt can't get his movie made, I mean, I remember when Ron Howard was trying to do Rush, and that's a great race film, but when I was trying to do this one, there were no good race movies. And so every studio I would go to would just say, well, race movies don't make money. And Angelo was such a good partner. You know, his whole thing was, well, tell me a good race movie. No one's ever made one, right?
Yeah.
So
Days of
then
Thunder. Days of Thunder.
Days
Come
of
on.
Thunder, right? And now they're doing part two, you know,
Yeah.
so good for them. I love all that. But, you know, once you realize that your struggle is the same as everyone else's and they're trying to break the doors down just like you are, you just, that kind of gives me the motivation to keep going and realize that those days that I do wake up and I'm like, man, what am I going to do now? I realize, you know, they're doing the same thing I am, and we're all in the same boat. We're all the same. We're all equal, and you know, we're all really trying to help each other.
Well, I'm glad you're here kind of leveling the playing field because, like we talked about earlier, everything looks good on social media. We post our highlights and then we look at
Yeah,
our own life and you think, well, I'm not feeding my kids all organic food. I'm not getting my dog massages every day, like just all the nonsense that's on social media. And then we compare that to our own life. But I was the chaplain for the Miami Heat many, many years ago when we lived in Miami, and just getting around those guys, right? You think they've got everything, the money, the fame, and they go home and, you know, go to sleep the same way we do and have the struggles, the fears and the doubts. And you said so many different things. I'm trying to touch on all of them, but surrounding yourself with the right people. You said something in your prep, right? That passion isn't a substitute for preparation, which
yeah,
I always, love to say that, we always fall to the level of our preparation, not rise to the occasion. Like people think they're just going to, you know, deliver in that moment, but it's really about that preparation that matters. And so just so many different good things that you said in there. So we talk about this model, right? You try something, taking that first step. That's a test. Most people don't even do that. Then people will fail and quit. But what makes people like you and I different is we try to learn from the failure. So after you've kind of gone through all of this, where'd your mindset go and what did you learn that actually changed how you operate?
I mean, honestly, I think it's a built-in tenacity. I think I learned from my mother at a really young age. I mean, my mother had me at 15. She had my sister at 17. You know, there wasn't really a dad to speak of at the time, and I just saw her hustle. You know, I just saw her. You know, her life was dedicated to making sure that my sister and I were taken care of, and I saw that at an early age, and just realized, you know, that instilled a ethic in me. Even when I saw her fail, she wouldn't she wouldn't show that to anybody, and she would just figure something else out. You know, Christmas morning when, you know, there's not going to be any presents, or you don't think there's going to be any presents. My mom always found a way to make sure that everybody was taken care of and happy. And I think I learned to appreciate that at a really young age. And that really informs everything that I do now. So when I see other people struggling, I do my best to try and help them realize that even though you feel like there's no answer or you feel like there's no good solution, there always is. You can always find one. It's just a matter of not giving up
Yeah.
and, you know, taking that next step and putting one foot in front of the other. And like you say, don't let those bricks weigh you down.
Yeah. Sounds like we have a, similar mom. My mom, right, she was told not to go to college, went to college, told her women were meant to be secretaries. She went and got her doctorate in education, climbed the, corporate ladder at Chrysler. So as parents, that example we can set for our kids. If we're not pursuing our dreams, how can we ask them to? And
Right.
that's kind of, gives us an idea of your DNA makeup. But in this scenario, I mean, did you guys face any financial troubles funding this movie?
Oh yeah, we still are. I mean, the financial part of a film is, I mean, it is, you know, it's the independent films that I've done in the past. You know, they weren't at the level of this film, so you know, I was able to do those with, you know, friends, family, some investors, some business owners, some product placement. When you get into something like this, agents get involved, lawyers get involved, and you think you have the financing, and then somebody will just, I mean, honestly, we were having conversations about, if you're going to go to location A for 2 months, like we're talking about the color of the house that they're going to live in. And, so you start to do things like that and it gets so overwhelming. But you just have to take all those things one thing at a time, um, dot your I's, cross your T's, make a list of, okay, today is this hurdle. I'm going to get over this hurdle. Tomorrow is this hurdle. I'm going to get over this hurdle. And you just don't let anything stop you. And you just have to figure it out. I mean, there's no, whenever I do talks or do Q&As, people are always like, what advice could you give someone trying to break in? Like if there was a formula, everybody would be doing it, right?
Right.
It's about you making your own formula, and nobody's path to success is exactly the same. You hear about some actors who were just walking down the street and the casting agent saw them and put them in a movie and now they're famous. But like I've said, I've sat in rooms with some very famous people who 2 days before they're with me, they were pitching something else and it didn't go well. And, you just realize that you just can't let anything stop you if it's really what you want to do. And it doesn't have to be about filmmaking or music or the things that I'm doing. There's a lot of guys that we try to help that just want to have some kind of business, but it's all the same. It's, the struggle for what I'm doing is the same as the person who's, trying to be a whatever they want to do, a plumber or a mechanic or whatever, but it's just about finding what's going to make you happy and realizing that's what you're going to go after. And that I have found, like I said, once you're on your right path, like the universe kind of brings you the things that you need if you're really truly on that path. And I really believe in that. It took me a while probably to learn that. As I was younger, like I said, I just assumed, I get a famous screenwriter who's got a pedigree, and the next day I'm gonna be able to go to Sony and say, hey, make this movie. And then you quickly learn, they've got their own agenda, and everybody involved has their own agenda. But it's just about, trying to align everything in the right way and, making sure you have a point of view that's clear and concise and, make people believe in you. Because if you don't, and believe in yourself, if you don't believe in yourself, no one else is going to believe in you. And if you don't have that, that drive or that ambition, it's going to be tough. So just really figure out what you want to do and stick to it and don't take no for an answer.
Yeah, there's one caveat to that. If you don't believe in yourself, no one else will. Like you also, I think you said this earlier, and what I'm kind of reading between the lines too. It's like you went from how do I get this made to who can help me make this real. And you mentioned the universe will kind of bring it to you. I'm a faith in God guy, but it's just getting people on the same frequency, right? That's why we started the
Absolutely.
House of Bricks community that want to build together, believe in relationship capital, because there's times when you're going to doubt yourself, but who's going to be there to pick you up? But that shift from how do I get this made to who can really help me make this real is the learning that I'm seeing and hearing from you. And it is about the journey, but you definitely need to be on the right path. If you're trying to get to Florida and you're running 100 miles towards California, you may be struggling, but you'll
Right.
never reach your destination. So having a strategy, right people around you, being willing to fail, you've learned from it. So now kind of getting into the growth mode, the exciting part of the journey. You've got 500 going, you've got Wheelmen. Um, what do you see as kind of the process in this new chapter? Because you act differently in the testing phase. You're going to get beat up, taking the time to slow down to speed up in the learning phase. And now you're in that growth phase. You do need to have, a different mindset because things are starting to come together. You got to have clarity of vision. What do you see as kind of your mindset now as you are into this growth phase?
Well, I think something that you said was pretty poignant in that relationship capital is very important because as I went through the struggle phase and now I'm this kind of this other side where we're getting there, it wouldn't be because of that relationship capital I built while I was failing. And so, you learn not to take anything personal. You learn not to burn any bridges. and even if in situation A, when you're trying to do something, maybe, you're really leaning on someone over here to help you, maybe they can't. And maybe 2 years later they can, so there was a lot of naysayers in the beginning of a lot of the things that I tried to do that have kind of come back around, and maybe at the time I wasn't really believing myself and they do, but I really held on to all the relationships that I built during my struggle along the way. And now when I reach out to some of those people that maybe couldn't have helped me before, and now that they are, you really start to understand that, like I said before, everybody's always in the same kind of boat. But relationship capital is one of the most important things that I think people can really understand to try to capitalize on. Never burn the bridge, because you never know. If your paths don't align right now, maybe next year they will, or the year after that they will. And you know, that's really important, because that's a hard lesson I had to learn, because I was taking everything so personally when I was failing in the beginning.
Yep.
And at that time, when I said before, like, the universe will bring it to you, I think the universe wasn't bringing it to me because I wasn't ready. And I had a lot of growing to do. I had a lot of inward thinking, and things I had to do to be ready for an opportunity like this. And through that relationship capital, I was able to mature, be stronger, have a better mindset, have a better point of view. And then when I look back on that, I don't take any of those things personally anymore. I'm actually very grateful for all those failures to help me get to where I'm at right now.
One of the things I've learned over the last couple of years is I always want to do everything myself. Everything's okay, and then I end up in some sort of collateral damage over time. I just go 100 miles an hour until I implode. But what I've learned is you're actually doing other people a disservice when you don't let them help you. Like making that phone call, just as much as you want to help other people, they want to help you. But us as visionaries, drivers, we think we've got it all figured out. So there's a time. And again, if you have the mindset of people want to help and you're kind of keeping them from that opportunity without asking for it, it'll change your mindset, and they help you, you help them, and that's how the relationship capital is built. It actually deepens the relationship between two of you. Whoever's helping each other, you can build and grow together. So as we wrap up here, this has been amazing conversation. I feel like we've been friends for life, because we say a lot of the same things, think a lot of the same things. But any closing thoughts for people that are out there listening?
Well, like what you just said, like when I first moved to Los Angeles, I was struggling to find my friend group and the people I was going to work with creatively and things like that. And I met one of my best friends to this day. He was, when I met him, he was an actor. He had some success, but he also went through some struggles, and he had a tattoo right here on his forearm, and it said "help." And I've seen it so many times, but I was so involved in myself, I never thought to ask him, like, what does that mean? And so one night I just said, "Hey man, what does that mean on your arm there, help?" He said, "I had to learn it's okay to ask for help. And when you do, you'd be surprised how many people do want to help other people, but people are afraid to ask for help." And I think if more people would just put their egos aside and say, "Look, I could use some help. I'm struggling with this. You know, what are your thoughts?" Maybe not, don't ask anything specific, just ask for help and see where it goes. I think that's a very powerful tool to have in your arsenal, is just not be afraid to ask for help. I think that's very, very powerful.
Well, I love that. And thank you again for being a guest on Test, Fail,
Absolutely.
Learn, Grow. The purpose of this, right, is to show we're all human. You mentioned names like Brad Pitt and being a chaplain for the Heat. I've been around famous athletes, wealthy people. We're all the same. We're all human. We all struggle. We all need help. And the purpose of Test, Fail, Learn, Grow is to just show that process. But it is a flywheel that is a way of life. Like everything I'm
Absolutely.
doing, I'm testing, I'm failing, I'm learning, I'm growing. And that keeps you from getting stuck in failure, keeps you from being afraid to test, become a student of life, learning And then you want to grow. I mean, this has got to be fun. We got to have a purpose. Back to the WTF are we doing? The growth phase is the best part. So I want to thank everybody for joining. Justin, you've been an amazing guest. Look forward to connecting with you again offline. Absolutely. And feel free to call me for help anytime. So thank you, everybody, for joining. And if you're not a part of the House of Bricks community, this is not a commercial. Join any community, but find community, find advisors, find people to mentor you, peers to climb the mountain with, other people to mentor. And of course, we always talk about the center of the relationship capital flywheel is you. You have to invest in yourself because you cannot pour from an empty cup. So we'll see everybody next week.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.